We'd like to once again welcome our guest speaker and musician this morning, Greg Tamblyn. Greg blends a passion for consciousness, new thought teachings, and wellness with an irreverent sense of humor. A favorite of new thought communities, Greg's music has earned numerous awards, including a recent Lifetime Achievement Award at the Empower Music Awards, the Grammys of positive music. We'll get to hear some of these award-winning songs in his talk. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. It's great to be back and see some familiar faces. So I'm just going to dive right in. I like to joke that I have achieved the coveted NCW degree, no credentials whatsoever. Some of you may also have that degree, but the reality is I actually did escape from college with a real degree, a BS in geology. That's true. I was and remain fascinated by the big mysteries that geology looks into. You know, how our solar system came together 4.5 billion years ago and out of these clouds of gas and dust and somehow created all these planets and moons and our sun. And the fact that all of these moons that we're discovering are so different from each other. I mean, the variety is unbelievable. So we're still finding out how all that happened, lots of theories. And then, of course, on this planet, somehow, about 3.7 billion years ago, out of inorganic material, we got organic material. We got amino acids. We got life starting to arise. We don't know how that happened. Some scientists think it may have even come on an asteroid. So that's something we're still finding out about. And then after these billions of years and all the quadrillion, quintillion, million evolutionary possibilities, somehow at this little micro moment in geologic time, we get to be the dominant species. So I'm fascinated by all of this. I still read about it, enjoy studying it, but it wasn't long after college that I realized I was even more interested in what I think of as bigger mysteries. So things like, why is there anything instead of nothing? What is God? If God exists, then what is God like? Is it true that everything is somehow really interconnected on some level? What is consciousness? This amazing ability we have to self-reflect and plan and dream and imagine. What is death? And what happens to consciousness after death? What is free will? Is that a real thing? What is love? What are women really thinking? Big mysteries. So I thought we could have some fun with these. And if we're going to do that, well, just a couple of them is all we have time for. But I feel like it's important to start with God because I feel like God is kind of the big mystery. If we are open to the idea or accept the idea that there is a God, then the next question, of course, is, well, what is God like? And I'm sure you've noticed that a lot of saints and sages and prophets have tried to tell us their version of what God is like. Personally, I'm kind of fascinated by the fact that my concept of God is really different now than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm wondering if you can relate to that. Whatever you think about God now, it's actually different than it was 40 years ago. Does anybody kind of relate to that? So I thought that was kind of funny because I doubt if God's changed much in 30 years. So it seemed like a good idea for a song. So this song is called A Brief History of God. Now, you know that I'm a science guy, so I like to slide some science into the songs when I get the chance. So in the last verse of this song, we're going to introduce some physics. You've probably heard the theory, the new concept in physics called string theory. And so when we get to the part of the song that's about strings, you'll know it's physics. So this is called A Brief History of God, or G string theory. lots of competition, goddesses and gods of every disposition, from merciful to mean, from laid back to hyper, and little baby gods that flew around in diapers. Animals, pranksters, destroyers, creators, flute players, lute players, nymphs and satyrs. So many gods it was hard to keep them sorted, and God had multiple personality disorder. Well, keeping track of all these gods was no fun, so finally some people said, let's cut it down to one. But the one God was angry, always finding fault. There was banishment and floods and pillars of salt. Well, why? Was God traumatized at an early age by standing too close to the Big Bang? Was it nature or nurture or Satan's little goblins? God had anger, management problems. And God had other issues that messed with serenity, like this long-term question of sexual identity, the feminine divine or the male autonomous. God was so confused. Am I androgynous? And then on top of that, what was challenging the most was trying to figure out what the heck's the Holy Ghost. God needed time off and checked into a clinic. And poor old God was becoming schizophrenic. While in for treatment, God sends folks to teach us, like Krishna and Buddha, Mohammed, Jesus. On some things they agree, on other things they don't. And if you choose the wrong one, some say your soul is toast. Now everybody's praying by all these different rules. Muslims 5 times a day, Buddhists quite a few, Hindus, Jews, and Christians whenever there's a need, and Unitarians would rather plant a tree. Well, God's come a long way from that early dysfunction, and now science brought us to this beautiful junction. The key to the theory is that every single thing is made up entirely of vibrating strings. Well, this is what musicians have known all along. The universe is really one big song. And there you have it, friends. That's the story so far. We're all just musical strings in God's big guitar. Oh, thank you. It's a happy thought, isn't it? It's a happy thought. We're always vibrating. We never stop. So the trick is to stay in tune. Relationships are a lot about staying in tune. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now, a lot of people have told us that God is love, and we like that answer. That's a very comforting, comfortable answer, because what feels better than love? Not really anything. I'm fascinated by the word love because in the English language, we use this one word love for such a huge range of emotional experiences. You know how they say the Eskimos have something like 50 words for different kinds of snow? But we have this one word love for this, like I said, this wide range. You know, we have divine love, earthly love, motherly love, brotherly love, puppy love, faded love, jaded love, unconditional love, unrequited love, mystical love, physical love, love of chocolate chip cookies, and the big mystery so far still, I think, is romantic love. Romantic love is, I'm fascinated by it because we've all had the experience of having so much attraction and chemistry right off the bat with some person, and someone else who's equally desirable, we don't have anything. There's just nothing there. And I just find that amazing. I find it amazing how love can be so strong for some period of time, romantic love, and then somehow after a while, could be a short time or a long time, it fades. So love is, I mean, romantic love, who is it? Linda Berry, the cartoonist Linda Berry. You might know her work. She said, romantic love is an exploding cigar we willingly smoke. John Bradshaw, you might remember John Bradshaw. John Bradshaw said that falling in love, the experience of falling in love, is in reality a high octane endocrine hormone cocktail. And that's true. Science can measure this now. We know that there are specific and distinct hormonal changes that happen in the body when we fall in love. We also know that those changes are temporary, that the hormones tend to reset to whatever their base level was after 6 to 18 months, back to the original starting point. So for that relationship to last beyond the hormone cocktail, it has to be based on something other than the hormone cocktail. Hope that makes sense. Based on something maybe deeper, more profound, maybe even sacred. So I feel like we should at least do what the Greeks did. We should at least have two words for love. You know, they had eros for romantic love. They had agape for the more mystical, physical, brotherly kind of love, divine love. So that way, if we wanted to tell somebody that we loved them, but we didn't want there to be any misunderstanding about what was going to happen next, we could say, I agape you, and then it's all clear. Love is a word I use with music. I love music. I can't imagine my life without music. Maybe you feel the same way. I love this guitar. I love this guitar so much. And you know what? Before I loved this guitar, I loved a different guitar. I had this guitar that was made out of maple. So it was blonde. It had a very striking blonde finish. It was actually bigger than this guitar, which is not a small guitar, but it was bigger. And it was a pretty guitar. It was a good guitar, not absolutely fantastically great, but it was a good guitar. And I'd been all over the world with it for 10, 15 years. And I really loved that guitar because we get attached to our instruments. As much as I loved that guitar, I started having this idea that I wanted a different guitar. I wanted a guitar that fingerpicked a little more easily, that was a different size, that had better electronics in it, and a few other things. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted another guitar. And as the weeks and months went by, this desire grew very, very strong. Really wanted another guitar. But the process of shopping for guitars is not something I like. I don't enjoy it because I'm picky. It's hard for me to find one I like. And also because most guitar stores are staffed by what we could call young rock musicians. Now, tell me if in your mind these two things go together. Young rock musicians, great customer service. Not always. Sometimes, but not always. So I'm putting it off. I want a new guitar so much, but I'm just not doing anything about it until fate intervenes in the Honolulu airport in the form of a woman I will affectionately call Attila the gate agent. Now, I'm walking up to the gate counter at this airport in Honolulu with my guitar in my soft case on my shoulder. We call it a gig bag. And it fits overhead or hangs up in the closet. And this is how musicians travel with their guitars frequently. And as far as I was concerned, pretty much every week. I get about 15 feet from the gate counter, and this woman looks at me. She sees me coming up, and she points at me in a loud voice, says, that is not going on the plane with you, and walks off. And I thought, well, that's weird. That's never happened before. I wonder what's bothering her. So I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? She just doesn't understand that I'm a professional musician. She just needs to know that. So I go up, I give her a big smile, and hey, you know what? I'm a professional musician. I fly your airline all the time. I got to get to San Francisco for this concert. And she interrupts me. She says, no, 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 no. I don't think you heard me. That is not going on the plane with you, and walks away. So I thought, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought. Maybe she's just worried about the load. So I go back up, I give her another big smile. Hey, you know what? You're probably worried about the load. How about this? We'll let everybody get on except me. I'll get on last, and we'll see if there's room for my guitar. And I knew there would be room because it was one of those giant planes and there's always room. And she said, I don't think you heard me. That guitar is not going on the plane with you. Now stop bothering me and decide what you're going to do, and walks off. Well, now I'm panicking because the plane is boarding. And I have to get my guitar on the plane. I can't check it in this flimsy case because it'll get hurt. So I just resort to pleading, begging. I just start asking her, can we just try? Can we talk to a flight attendant? Can we just maybe talk to the captain? Can we just give it a shot before you say no? And she's just a block of ice, a stone wall. And she says, you have two choices. You can leave it here or you can check it, but it's not going with you. So I said, okay, well, here it is. I gave it to her and I said, please ask the baggage guys to put it somewhere safe because it could get hurt so easily. She just takes it and walks off. So I get on the plane. It turns out I'm sitting in the bulkhead seat in the front row of coach. And across from me is the little jump seat where the flight attendant sits for takeoff. And she and I start talking. And it's a long time takeoff, so I end up telling her the whole story about Attila. And to her credit, she listens to me without saying anything. And when I'm finished, she just shakes her head and she says, I'm so sorry. This is so wrong. This should never have happened. I sincerely want to apologize for our airline. We're not like this. We're not all like this. We respect instruments. We know they're expensive and we try to accommodate you musicians. And I just want you to know that this should never have happened. The closets are empty. There's no reason for it. Please accept my apology and don't hold it against us. She got up to go to work. I felt better. I thought that was the end of it. But she evidently told all the other flight attendants, because when it was my turn to get off the plane in San Francisco, all 7 of them were lined up there, and I'm walking by and they said, hey, you're the guy with the guitar. Look, they brought it up. Here it is. And I thought, well, that's really nice. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Let's look at it. And we unzipped the case and opened it up, and it's just shattered. It's just splinters. It's not going to be played again. And I felt horrible. The flight attendants felt bad. 3 of them walked me down to baggage service. And they said, look, here's what happened. Here's our names, our employee numbers, our phone numbers. We will vouch for this. This guy got treated badly, and we think you need to make it right. And then they left because it was midnight and they had to work the next day. And so here I am in the bowels of the San Francisco airport, SFO. I know you know it, out there in Davis. I'm sure you've been there. And it's midnight, and there's nobody around anywhere except this girl on the other side of the counter who looks about 12. And she looks up at me with a sweet face and she says, I can't help you. I'm only 18. I work here, but I don't have any authority to do anything. If you want to come back in the morning at 9 o'clock, the manager will be here and you can talk to her. But I need to let you know that we have a strict rule. We never break it. We do not compensate for musical instruments ever. So you need to know that if you come back. So I went to where I was spending the night with some musician friends in San Francisco. And you know how sometimes when you're really upset, it's hard to sleep. And my feelings for Attila were not something I could share with you outside of group therapy. I got up the next morning exhausted from that anger and frustration and no sleep. And I'm driving out to the airport and I felt so bad. I just started praying. I said, God, I don't know what to do about this, but I would really like to feel calm. If you could just help me feel calm, that would be great, and I will let everything go. I'll just let it go. Please just help me be calm. And it worked. By the time I got to the airport, I was calm. I kind of let go of everything. I went in, the manager was there. We sat down. I had the names and numbers of everybody. I told her the whole story. And to her credit, she just listened. And when I got finished, she shook her head and she said, well, wait a minute, and disappeared. And came back with this higher manager, this other lady, and they sat down and they said, look, we have a company policy. We do not compensate for musical instruments. I said, yeah, I know, I heard that. And they said, well, we've decided we need to buy you a new guitar. I said, really? And they said, yep, just find one you like. We'll pay for it. So I got out of there before they could say anything else. And I asked my musician friends, where do I go? I got to go buy a new guitar in San Francisco. And they said, well, our favorite place, really the best place, is the Haight-Ashbury Music Center. So off I go to Haight-Ashbury. Now, this is about 20 years ago, and as many of you know, I'm from Kansas. And Haight-Ashbury, at least then, was like this little corner of the Twilight Zone, because there was the past and the present and the future all there on the sidewalk, all together. Every kind of personal preference you could imagine, and it's all just like a smorgasbord for the senses. And I'm walking around Haight-Ashbury looking for this guitar store, getting a little high in the process, and I finally find it, and it turns out to be a great guitar store, probably the best I've ever been in. They have wonderful guitars and salespeople, and for 2 days they bring me guitars and they let me play them, and they don't hover or bother me, they just answer my questions. And after a couple of days they brought me this guitar, and I knew right away it was different. It was special. I liked it. It sounded good, played well, fit my hands, all that. And I played it the rest of the day. Then they let me take it out of the store and play a concert with it that night. And this is when I knew this was my new guitar. Well, this guitar is way better than my other guitar. It's way better. Everything about it is better. And it was $600 more expensive than my old guitar, totally paid for by the airline. And the thing is, I owe it all to Attila, the gate agent. You never know who's going to turn out to be an angel in your life. They might not look like it at first. But when this kind of thing happens, and I know it's happened to all of you, and we look back with some perspective, and we get some bigger picture, it really fills me with a kind of an odd sense of wonder, because it really does feel like in those instances that we are all interconnected in some basic kind of ways. You know, if the scientists are right, if at our most fundamental level, we're just vibrating strings, then everything, not just us, everything is vibrating strings, then everything is connected in that cosmic symphony. We're all vibrating together. There's no boundaries at that level. If the mystics are right, if everything is God, and God is everything, then we're all interconnected on that fundamental level of God. Whatever God is, We're connected that way. This is such a beautiful idea. It fills me with a sense of wonder. And what's important about that idea, that we're all interconnected? One of the important things about it is that when we feel connected to each other, it's much easier to feel compassion for each other. When we feel connected to people on the other side of the planet, it's much easier to feel compassion for those people or other beings, animals. So that, as I started to say, fills me with a sense of wonder, of awe. And I think that's kind of the key word here, this idea of wonder, because what the best mystics and the best scientists have in common is a sense of wonder at the workings of the universe, a sense of amazement and awe at how it all works together. And what the best of those have in common, the ones we tend to remember as our teachers, is a sense of humor, the ability to take it all lightly. Einstein was famous for this. Einstein has many funny quotes, but one of the ones I love is he said, once you can imagine the universe as being something coming from nothing, manifesting into something, wearing stripes with plaid is easy. He was a famously crazy dresser. So a sense of wonder and a sense of humor. Now, a sense of humor has been well documented as good for us. We all know the benefits of humor and laughter and silliness and play, how good they are for us. But the experience of awe and wonder is also becoming scientifically studied by a lot of people and organizations now, because it's starting to document that this is a really great place for us to go every day, is a sense of awe and wonder. So it works for me. Humor and wonder are two places I need to go every day just to feel healthy. Now, if you would like information on that, because those are newer studies, you can just go to gtsongs.com, that's my website, and fill in the contact form and let me know that you want some information about the studies on wonder. I'll send it to you. All right, so that's all the mysteries we have time for today. Obviously, there's a lot more we didn't get to, but we can get to them another time. I want to finish up with a quote by Karl Rahner, a theologian who said something kind of cool. He said, there's two kinds of people in the world: people who need certainty and people who seek understanding. And I would just suggest to you that it's better to be a seeker of understanding for this reason. When you're sure you're right, you're stuck with what you already know. Make sense? When you're sure you're right, the learning stops. Well, I'd like to go into meditation with these thoughts. So I invite you, I know you know how to prepare for meditation. I'm just going to play a little melody here, Heart of the Mother melody, and offer up a really pretty prayer that I learned a long time ago on a trip to China. So I invite you to close your eyes. Just let yourself be relaxed, be calm, and open yourself to the beauty of these words. Let all things be healthy. Let all things be peaceful. Be sure to count your blessings at least once a day. Forgive those who have hurt you and those who have offended you. But forgive yourself for what you have done and for that which you have failed to do. That which is done, there is no need to speak of. That which is past, there is no need to blame. Have self-control, self-knowledge, self-respect, and the courage to dare. Be tranquil. The light of intelligence will shine. And strive to make a spot where you stand beautiful. Then the beauty and harmony will follow you in all your days and in all your ways on this journey we call life.